Welcome to the Go Shout Love podcast. My name is Seth Carnell, and I am very, very pleased to bring you a fantastic episode with two great people. We are talking with Josh and Jacque, the parents to Miller, a little boy with Leigh syndrome. If you are new to Go Shout Love, you'll hear more about what Leigh syndrome is in this episode. If you are not new, you may be familiar with that diagnosis. New or not, you are in for something special this month, as Miller was nominated by a previous Go Shout Love family, Katie and Tyler, the parents to Beckett, who was also diagnosed with Leigh syndrome. There's a lot more to this relationship that you won't want to miss, so be sure to subscribe to our podcast, where we will have a special connection episode coming up. Now, back to this conversation. If you are a parent, you know the feeling of expectation when you are planning for a new baby or when a new baby has just arrived. You have plans of what your life with your child will be like and visions of things that you will experience. What you don't prepare for is how to cope when those plans and visions are changed when a diagnosis presents itself. In this episode, you will hear from Josh and Jacque on the grief and processing that goes into a journey like this. You will also hear about the joy of raising a son like Miller and the lesson of slowing life down to appreciate what it can bring you. Along with me in this conversation is our co-director of Go Shout Love, Josh Veach. Please take a second to rate and review this episode on whatever platform you are listening on. And here we go.
Okay, cool. Well, first, just tell us about Miller. Tell us about his personality.
He is pretty outgoing. He, Mickey Mouse, obviously, he loves everything Mickey Mouse. Just had a birthday, and so we've got Mickey Mouse stuff all over the house.
I think I've counted like 16 Mickeys, maybe.
There's a lot of Mickey Mouse, and
I think there's 4 in one chair in his playroom.
We actually had life-sized Mickey and Minnie at the party, so
that's awesome.
Pretty amazing.
Like actually, like people like costumes
through
mascot
social media.
looking.
We found people
awesome.
that had. We actually ordered. Jacque ordered a costume from China, and it arrived without a head
or pants.
We were in a bind, and the miracle of social media is someone came to our rescue, and that was a really great day. So he's just very happy.
Yeah. So when you guys, so he is he 3, right? Mm-hmm. And so when's his birthday?
He turned 3 on November 3rd.
November 3rd. So just turned 3. Mm-hmm. Okay. And so tell us a little bit about, in his personality, what does he do, or what about him just puts the biggest smile on your face, Mom?
I use the word resilient a whole lot with him, but he is just so resilient. He has been through hell and back. And, as we're told, it's only going to get harder for him. But he faces every day with a smile and a hug and just this joy that just exudes. Like, you just can't be unhappy around him. You realize if he's facing all of this and he can be this happy, what else matters? What do I have to be upset about? It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Dad, what about for you? What does he do, or what about him puts the biggest smile on your face?
Just seeing him happy, obviously, but he tries so hard, and so even when things may be stacked against him, just seeing him try, and this, it may be pretty small little things, but he knows when he does something and succeeds at it, and he's pretty hard-headed at times, and so doing things that make you realize he's a typical 3-year-old kid.
It's almost like he's got his own goals that he's working towards, and you can kind of see that light up when he accomplishes them.
And so seeing, he's a lot of times he's an ornery 3-year-old kid, and it's great to see that.
Seeing his resiliency has to make you feel pretty proud, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Very. Very. He's faced more in his 3 years than either of us has faced in 60 collective years. It's just amazing that we get to be in the front row of his life and learn from him.
Tell us a little bit about his diagnosis. So for someone who's not listening, he's diagnosed with Leigh syndrome, and if they've never heard of that before, give us a quick rundown on what that is, and when you found out about Miller's diagnosis.
So Leigh syndrome is a type of mitochondrial disease. And mitochondrial diseases are fairly rare as that, but it's a very tiny portion of mitochondrial diseases. It was explained to us early on that his body is essentially trying to run off of a much smaller energy source than it can sustain. So it's the equivalent of running a house on a 9-volt battery. Eventually that battery is going to lose all of its power. There is a mutation in his energy chain that causes him to not have full energy, full muscle tone, causes lesions on his brain. So he's got delayed development. He's nonverbal currently. And that comes and goes. He's had words and he's been able to do things in the past that he can no longer do, but he can also do things that he couldn't do 6 months ago. One being, like, he finally started sitting on his own when he was 2 years old. It's a big deal for him to be able to sit independently when and where he wants. He uses a gait trainer to get around, and those are the things that give him independence that we didn't know we would ever get when we first got his diagnosis.
And what age was that? When he was 9 months old, he started having a type of seizure called infantile spasms. And it looks just like a kind of a series of jerks. And they just do a certain little tick, and it just happens over and over and over. So, long story short, we ended up inpatient at the hospital in Dallas. We did an MRI to see what was going on, and they noticed he had lesions on his brain. So at that point, we knew he had a mitochondrial disease. We didn't know the severity of it. Mm-hmm. And so they took blood from all three of us, sent it off to a lab. There's only 1 or 2 in the country that do this type of testing because it is so rare. And we didn't get results until he was 15 months old. So we went in the hospital in September.
Oh, wow.
And in February, we finally got a diagnosis.
What's going on in those few months in between?
He developed a second type of seizure. We had the first one kicked, we thought, and then it came back with a vengeance, and a second one developed. And then right after his diagnosis, he got pneumonia. So we had a pretty rough 6 months or so with him, not knowing what we were facing, how to battle it, what the long-term effects were going to be, or what his life was going to look like. We were, I would say, in a pretty dark place.
Sure. Was anybody kind of guiding you along and saying it could be this, it could be this? Who's talking to you, and what are you hearing in those? Because, 3 to 4 months of seeing the seizure and getting a diagnosis, there's a lot going on there. So what can you paint a picture of what's going on in your guys' heads? And
well, the genetic and metabolic field in general it's just very, I would say it's not a whole lot of study is going on, and so they were, at times we felt like they were just kind of taking a shot in the dark that they didn't really know. And so and of course, as parents, the worst thing you can do is get on Google and you're reading all this all this stuff, and it was really tough just not knowing what was going on and really not getting a lot of answers.
We didn't have a whole lot of guidance, I would say. It was kind of radio silence from the doctors because I think they had a pretty good inclination of what was going on, and they gave us kind of worst case. But then Leigh syndrome came about, and it was like, okay, so it's worse than that. And there's not a lot of study going on specifically for Leigh syndrome because typically the kiddos don't live long enough for them to do any research and gain any ground in the field. So we really are just kind of taking a stab in the dark, as are our doctors,
right?
Because there's not enough time to do proper research and trials, and we're all just kind of like trying something and praying it works.
Yeah. Had you had any experience or were you familiar with Leigh syndrome at all before this, or was this the introduction to that?
So Leigh syndrome was we'd never heard of it.
Never heard of it, no.
I did know a little bit about mitochondrial disease. My basketball coach in high school had a son that was born with a mitochondrial disease, and I knew what limitations he had. And so as soon as they told us mitochondrial disease, I just was beside myself, thinking, I have all these expectations for my son. I want to see him play and run and get upset and throw temper tantrums and go to school and go to college and stay out past curfew. And, you know, all of these things that you like secretly dread, but you expect from parenthood. And those things were taken away in an instant from us. And it was a really hard time.
You've talked about how Miller has taught you to mourn and be joyful in the same breath. Can you break that down? What does that mean?
I think for me, right after he was diagnosed, I couldn't stop crying. Knowing that my child's life is not going to look like it should in my mind. My life's not going to look like I thought it would. And I spent a lot of time very upset about it. And then I realized, if I'm only getting another year with him, I'm not going to sit here and waste it. So I try to allow myself to have the feelings and the sadness, because I think ignoring it is not healthy. But in the same breath, really focusing on the here and the now. Being in the moment, not being tied to my phone or overextending when it's just not worth it. Being with Miller and doing what's best for Miller and making him happy is kind of our life's goal right now.
Dad, how are you processing that while she's...
A lot of, like what she said, I have an amazing dad. I grew up, some of my fondest memories, excuse me, of my childhood is hunting, fishing, golf, football. You know, my dad was a big part of my life growing up. So, you know, when you hear you're going to have a son, obviously the first thing you think of is, I can't wait to do those same things. And so when we first found out what was going on, selfishly, I was pretty bitter about the whole thing. And it's just taught me to realize it's not about me. So each day we have with him is a true blessing, and we've grown a lot through this because, again, I was a pretty bitter guy for a while.
How has just in everyday life, how has that? Because I think what you're saying is it's kind of forced some realignment in priorities. It's kind of refocused the lens of your life. How has that affected your just everyday life? You kind of touched base, Jackie, on like the things that you would maybe worry about or disconnecting from your phone. Like what are the everyday life things that have been impacted just because of that shift on how you view your time with him and your time as a family?
I think being present when he's around is imperative. But it's also made us realize that with other people. For me, it's very important for me to be in the moment when I'm with people that I love. To not take a minute for granted, to tell people how I feel about them when I feel it. Because you can't guarantee you're going to get another opportunity. So if there's a moment when I'm thinking, you know, this girlfriend was really great to me, or I'm really proud of her for accomplishing this, I tell her as soon as I can, because it's important for me to validate those things and to be present, to be in the moment and not wait for something traumatic to happen to express how you feel or what you think or what you need. That's also something I think that I've learned, is it's okay for people to help you. We're both very prideful people, and we don't like help. We don't like, I call it handouts, but we think we can handle things all on our own. And we've realized it's for Miller. It's taking stress off of our plate by allowing somebody to, like Katie, sweeping our floors today. Something little like that, it gives me 15 minutes back to sit with Miller and give him my attention. Yeah. It's okay to let that happen and to just slow down.
Yeah, and in the same way that you were just talking about sharing with someone what they mean to you or that you're proud of them, to not accept that help is to almost reject their love, because that's an extension of their, not only for Miller, but for the two of you. Mm-hmm. That people show up and they support and they do things, yes, to help carry that load, but also because you guys mean something to them. And I think that's hard for anybody to it's easy to be prideful and say we can handle this, but to get to the point where you're realizing that by letting your pride get in the way, you're actually robbing them of an opportunity to bless you is a hard lesson to learn. You touched on support, and that's been, I know, something that has been a big deal that for you guys. What has that support network look like for you?
Well, we're blessed to have both sets of our parents within an hour and a half of here. So both of our mothers have been amazing to come and stay with him. Once a week, at least, one of them is here. So they've been great to help out. In Abilene, we just have a lot of close friends, and that we can reach out to do anything we need. We've got people here close by, and people always checking on us, whether we reach out or not. And so it's really nice to have. But our families have been really amazing.
Yeah.
We've been involved in an organization for a number of years around town, and they're kind of like a family to us now. Just this last week, 2 different families from that organization popped by, one at the office and then one when actually Josh was delivering water, and gave us something that they thought of when they thought of Miller when they saw it. One of us a book, one was a dancing Mickey, and it's probably a $15-$20 gift that just means the world to us, because we know we're not alone. We know these people love us, they love our boy, and they're showing their love by stopping by, say hi, check on us, and giving him something that makes him smile. There's just nothing better than that.
It's difficult enough going through dark times, troubled times. I can't imagine doing it alone.
Exactly.
Amen. We wouldn't know. Thank God we wouldn't know.
Yeah. I love hearing that. It's comforting.
The thought that they would think of you while they're out too.
Yes, they're out busy,
it's one thing
and running
to say,
errands.
you especially in the for people of faith, it's like, oh yeah, well I'm going to pray for you, right? And it's like you move on and you go get groceries, or the rest of your life goes on, but the reality is still there for that person you just talked to, that whatever darkness or moment, the season that they're in, is still there. And the idea that someone out of the blue shows up with a gift means that they were carrying that load with you out wherever they were. And that's powerful. It means you have really good people.
Sure.
You have a really good tribe.
We are really blessed. And we know that there are people in our same situation as far as the diagnosis that they probably don't have, near the support that we do. So we are really blessed.
Well, I think it kind of brings it all full circle in that Miller is creating ripples. And then maybe not even just in the Leighs or the mitochondrial community, but across all of our family and friends. They see, like, we all slow down, we all take a moment, we all love each other when we can and how we can, and just making the moments count, which I feel like people do for us all the time.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier kind of those expectations of what life would look like and mourning that. How would you define motherhood now versus maybe what you would have said before this journey? Does that make sense?
Y'all may be familiar with the poem Welcome to Holland.
I'm not. Are you?
No, I'm not.
It's a beautiful, gut-wrenching poem. It was written by a mom who had a son, I believe he was autistic. And it's basically when you get pregnant and you're expecting this baby, it's like you're planning a trip to Italy. You're looking forward to all the sights and the sounds and the tourist attractions and the, all the things that Italy has to offer. But you board your plane, and all of a sudden you land in Holland. And you're like, Holland's great, but it's not where I want to be.
Right.
This is not what I signed up for. I want Italy.
Doesn't look like the postcard.
Exactly. Like, yes, there are windmills and Rembrandts and tulips and all these beautiful things, but that's great for someone else. I signed up for Italy, and that is exactly it for me. I still catch myself on a daily basis. I watch other kids run around Miller, and it breaks my heart because I want him to run. I mean, he runs with help of a gait trainer, but he doesn't run free. And I want him to run free for he and for me, because that means I don't have to put him in something. I don't have to get him out of something. He can walk over and get himself a drink if he could. Mm-hmm. He could walk out the door. He could open up the knob and not need assistance going down into our back porch. He could easily go with grandparents instead of us having to load up the whole house. It's just, I think life of a special needs mom, it's just parenting with like 100 extra pounds. Yeah. Constantly, because his walker's probably at least 50, and I know that's literal, but everywhere we go, we load and unload a walker. Last night we went to dinner, and then we went to walk around this awesome new trail downtown. Well, we took a walker, we took a high chair, we took a stroller. Our whole back was full of things, whereas a typical 3-year-old would need none of those things. Maybe a sippy cup, and we'd go to dinner. That's it. And our life just looks a little bit different. It takes a lot more prep. And it's exhausting sometimes. But for him to be the most comfortable and the most supported is all that we want for him. Mm-hmm. So we do it.
Outside of your family and friends who are as close as family, there are likely few things that you put blood, sweat, and tears into like your home. So when it comes to finding someone to work on your house, you need folks that you can trust. Battles Home Improvement has proudly been serving the Abilene community for more than 60 years, transforming bathrooms, kitchens, exteriors, and more into beautiful and functional living spaces for your family. So whether it's a minor home improvement or time to turn your house into the house of your dreams with a major remodel, you know who's ready to tackle the project. Head over to aremarkablehome.com for more information and learn about the great team of Battles Home Improvement. Again, that's aremarkablehome.com, and we are grateful to have Battles Home Improvement as our lead sponsor for February and to have them shouting love for Miller with us all month long. And now, back to our chat.
What does day-to-day care look like for Miller? And then I know that for Leigh's, it can be the prognosis and day-to-day, like what to expect can be different from child to child. What have the doctors told you about what to expect and then how to best care for him right now?
Well, he's in 6 therapies a week, and so that's something that's just very consistent in our life. He's going to have therapies, and like we're fortunate to have a very an amazing facility here in Abilene, so that he can do everything he needs to here, because a lot of it's very specialized therapy that if it weren't for them, we would be going 2 or 3 hours away from home. So it's been awesome. But so that's something that he deals with on a daily basis, and he some days he just doesn't want to do. He doesn't handle it well, and he's an ornery 3-year-old some days, and he just doesn't care to do it. But that's something that has really helped him a lot, because without those therapies, who knows what he'd be doing right now. And as far as outlook going forward, it's really hard to tell, because honestly, he's doing better right now than they told us he ever would. Mm-hmm. So it's which
is a little bit unusual then for his diagnosis. Right?
Mm-hmm. So, and again, that goes into the whole thing of take each day as a gift, because you don't know.
Yeah.
But some days we look at him and it's hard to think, wow, how could it just go downhill because he's doing so great? But it's in the back of your mind, it's always there.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be challenging, not having like an official medical guide to kind of say, this is what it's going to be, this is what it is. You're always constantly kind of in the dark, but you're seeing good things out of them. Excellent. That's got to be an up and down constantly.
It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So morning and night, we give him medications, which he hates. Thankfully, he takes them fairly well. But medications, therapy, and then care of getting him changing diapers. He'll be in diapers indefinitely. Putting him in a high chair, putting him in a walker, putting him on his pallet, moving him to a different room, changing his clothes, all of which is very hands-on. He's over 30 pounds, so we're getting very strong in doing all of those things. And I think that's part of living in the moment, is that we don't know what's coming next. So we have to enjoy the current, because it could change in a heartbeat. Tomorrow we could be in a doctor's office or a hospital. We don't know.
It almost frees you up from trying to look for certain next steps or certain milestones. Like you get the freedom of just embracing where you are right now, and not concerned about, well, here's what they told us should be happening at this point, but it's not, is that good or bad? You kind of have the freedom just to soak it in, and it sounds like you're doing that. I'm sure it's a ongoing lesson to learn. I'm sure you don't
every day.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's bittersweet.
It's like you guys also leapfrog decades in maturity, because you almost had to. Like, you talked about how you've had to break down your own sense of pride to receive help, or your priorities have changed. You're already older than what you probably would have been because of your situation.
Yeah, I don't guess I've thought about it that way, but you change because you have to adapt to what is necessary now. And realizing that we can be prideful all day, but if Miller's happier with something that somebody has to offer and has offered, then it's best that we get out of the way.
Yeah.
One of the questions we love to ask, and it's simply because we have found, and I know you've talked about social media support, and I want to come back to that, but what would you tell a parent? You guys have been on this journey now for several years. Somewhere there's a parent that's getting a diagnosis of Leigh syndrome or something similar, and they're, like you mentioned, they're in that dark place. What would you say to them?
I would say it's okay to have a pity party, but don't park there.
That's good.
Get it out. Have your feelings, because they're absolutely valid.
Sure.
Your whole world is being rocked, and that is
Yeah.
unfortunate. It just sucks. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There are people that want to connect with you and to help you. Even if it's not the exact same diagnosis that your son or loved one is dealing with, there is someone out there. I mean, heck, call us. We would love to help you through that moment, because it is hard. And sometimes you just need a minute to reset, and then you hit the ground running, doing whatever you can for your kiddo, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Josh, what about you?
Definitely lean on people who are there for you, and I know that's been huge for us. And they're going to be, most days are hard, and you just, honestly, literally, some days you just have to put one foot in front of the other and realize that, I kind of think some days you just have to realize there's always somebody out there with worse off than you are.
You guys also seem like a really good team. How do you support each other? Have you had to, like, actively, even get out of your own ways sometimes? Like, how does it work for each other right now?
It's been a process. We were actually talking with our friends that are here. Everyone grieves differently. And we went through a very significant grieving period right after he was diagnosed for a while. I tend to do things that I know will help, and find myself busy to alleviate my grief that way. Josh took a little bit longer to come around, but it's been a beautiful thing to see, in that we both, obviously we love each other. We got married for a reason. We had a kid together for a reason. But we both realize the importance of every day and trying to make the most of our family time when we get it. I think it just helps us to kind of take a step back and realize that this isn't, nothing is guaranteed. Mm-hmm. And so I think it helps me to realize that my family, my boys are very important to me.
It did take me a while, as the man, the provider, all those cheesy
the
cliches,
stereotypes
but
you really have to wear. Yeah.
My thing is if something's wrong and I want to fix it, and seeing my wife and son go through something like that and not be able to fix it, it was hard. I've used the word bitter. I was pretty bitter for a while. But you just have to learn to prioritize those feelings and realize the best way to approach is to move forward, and I have a great teammate in her, so.
And I'm sure that the bitterness, I'm sure, comes and goes in waves, I would guess.
Definitely, it does.
And how have you found any way to fight through that, or an avenue to outlet some of that and work through that, or what does that look like?
I think I've just made myself realize that he's okay, and most days, I can't fix what's going on. I can see Jackie struggling sometimes, and I can't fix it. I just have to figure out a way to support her better, and so it's taken me a while to learn that. But just seeing, most days I see her smiling and him smiling, and that kind of puts my feelings on the back burner. Things are okay.
Well, Jackie, you said earlier how this has taught you to be present, and I think there's power sometimes when we can't fix it, or sometimes it's just presence, being in each other's presence as a family, or whatever you're going through. Even the presence of being in it together brings a certain level of comfort and realignment that, certain activities, there's no, you can't fix it any other way, but at least you're not alone in it. That you're going to journey through it together.
Absolutely. And I think we both get a lot of recharge or more energy, or kind of get to reset when we go outside as a family. We really like to do things outdoors. His family lives in the country, and we get to go, Miller gets to ride on a mule, or he gets to run around in a carport and
he gets to be a 3-year-old
dirty little crazy boy.
Yeah.
We go to the lake with my family, and we get to go on a boat, and we get to, Miller's ridden an inner tube, and those things, to me, that's what I grew up doing. So, and like Josh talked about, we saw the trajectory and the things we wanted to do with our children. So doing some of those things outdoors, when we get to take a deep breath, and we've got some loved ones around us to kind of help lighten the load, I think it helps us both kind of recharge, reset, and get ready to face another day.
Yeah.
One last thing I want to come back to. I know, Jackie, you've mentioned on the support side of things that even social media has been a way of supporting you, that you guys have received support and growth. And we find that a lot. In fact, we find that a lot of families that we talk to, they will get connected into a group or something of parents that are on a similar type journey, and they actually become more educated on the diagnosis and the medical side of things than even their physicians in some cases, simply because these moms or dads have done all the research. They're fully invested into what's going on. What kind of support have you found on social media?
So there's a group for Leigh's syndrome parents, and just searching on Facebook, figuring there's got to be something, even if it's just mitochondrial disease after he was diagnosed. Joined the group and quickly connected to several families, some of which we've grown extremely close to and have gone on weekend trips together. Love them like family. Others we get a lot of information from. And one in particular, one family that we have grown very close to, actually found after we launched our blog. I felt called to share Miller's story, and I wasn't sure how or why, or when, or what avenue to do this in. And it felt very self-serving, so I resisted for a while. And then in September of, I guess it was 18, I shared Miller's story, his diagnosis, and a NICU nurse that we'd had. Miller was born prematurely and was in the NICU for a little while. Actually was friends with a friend of ours named Katie, and they had gone to college together, and their son had just been diagnosed with Leigh syndrome. And she said, hey, I guess talked to each of us individually and said, would y'all connect? I feel like y'all need to know each other. And so we did. And we started texting and got to kind of lean on each other and bounce ideas off of each other and vent and pray for each other and love each other. And unfortunately, we never got to meet their son. But I know that Beckett and Miller would have been the wildest pair. But we love them, and we never would have found them had it not been for social media, had it not been for that connection of somebody that we both knew, that we had no idea knew both of us. And we've Katie and Tyler included, we have learned so much from other families via social media. The support or the ideas or the just another thing to try when Miller's struggling with something. Well, have you tried this? Or maybe pull back on this. And it's just amazing that the knowledge of parents, they care so much. Two, they've been there and they have all this knowledge that we're able to benefit from and share, vice versa, if we've been through something. I would say those people understand us more than anybody. Our own mothers try really, really hard, and some of our best friends try very, very, very hard to understand where we're at and to love on us. But you just don't know until you know.
It's difficult to do.
And I'm grateful that most people don't know.
Yeah.
You don't want them to know what this life is like. So when we found Katie and Tyler, we didn't realize how much we would need them.
Yeah.
But we've hit it off, and it's just this great support system, people that just get it on a deeper level than most.
So for anyone listening, if you haven't made the connection, that Beckett was our Go Shout Love kiddo for February of 2019, and it's no accident that Miller's our February 2020 kiddo, because Katie actually nominated Miller, and so we're really excited. We wouldn't have the opportunity to get to know Miller's story if it wasn't for that connection. So stay tuned for another episode, and we will get into that relationship a little bit more. But thank you guys for your willingness to open up and share. I know this is extremely difficult, and you mentioned that the blog, you've battled that being the feeling of that being a self-serving, potentially self-serving motive or self-serving thing. I would say dive into that stuff, because self-serving and doing the things that are therapeutic for you and helpful for you is not only going to help you, but it will help others. Like, I think when we live into the things that you mentioned, the word calling, when we live into things that we're called to, it's not just for us. Calling is very rarely just about us. It's about the things that you're going to bring to other people. And in the same way that Tyler and Katie and other people that you've connected with in that community have shared life in many ways with you guys, even by having these conversations and by writing, you're doing the same for others, and you're helping them navigate something that no one deserves or should have to ever go through. But you'll never know the weight that your words carry and the weight of your courage to step into these type of moments. So on behalf of us who get to grow by listening, and those who will listen, thank you, because it does matter. And I hope that the people that rally around you through our connection will get to meet Miller in their own way. Like, they'll get to see his personality and see all the things that make him great beyond the diagnosis. So thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank y'all so much.
Stories and journeys like the one you heard today deserve to be told and deserve to be listened to. So where am I going with that? Well, I want you to share this podcast or rate and review it so that others may hear it, so that the story can be told. Beyond that, you can support this family for the entire month of February by purchasing a shirt inspired by Miller. You can also purchase a mug, hat, or other items at GoShout.love. On top of that, you can also start a subscription and support the highlighted family or families every month. Just use the discount code podcast at checkout to receive $5 off your first month. Thank you for listening, everyone, and as always, go shout love.